So recently I've been playing around a lot with programmable music machines in Minecraft. You know, the type where you have a large piston tape and then you'd have like glass, which can stop a redstone signal, and then blocks can conduct a redstone signal like stone, which then power a note block. And wrong one. And the idea is that you would then like craft a tune by changing the glass and stone around. Um, and then there's also tapes that use cauldrons instead, where instead of powering the block, you can instead use water in the cauldron, and it measures the level, and that outputs a signal. However, something I noticed is that these piston tapes that use cauldrons don't seem to take advantage of the fact that cauldrons can have multiple different states and multiple different outputs based on the water level. Maybe machines like that do exist and I'm just blind.
What sort of stupid question is that? Are you blind? Yes.
But I don't know, I searched around and I couldn't find anything like that. So cauldrons can have four possible water levels. There's low, half full, and empty. And using this, you should be able to store more information than just the on-off of like glass and stone. And I thought, well, maybe instead of just controlling one note block, you can control multiple note blocks all hooked up to the same tape. For example, like a cauldron filled with a single water bottle will play an A note, and then maybe half full will play a A sharp, and all the way full will play a B note. And like with just 3 notes connected to each piston tape, you would be able to compress like the entire 25 semitones they can get in Minecraft into just 8 piston tapes. And you can compress it even further if you add in blocks that can conduct redstone signals like this, powered from behind. So you should be able to get 25 semitones in Minecraft into just 5 piston tapes. So I started with this little prototype. Of course, I needed a piston tape to store the music on, and then I needed a red coder to measure the output from the comparator and power the appropriate note block. Now, with this prototype, I was also experimenting with like the red coder design, because I could have probably used a more conventional design like this. But like the issue is it's kind of a bit too bulky for what I want, and I want to be able to stack piston tapes like that as closely as possible. So I wanted a thinner red coder, and so it's kind of experimenting around with that a little bit here. Now with the next iteration, I added another tape of cauldrons here, and I was experimenting with some more faster tape designs. That's why I have this tape on the bottom here. It's just stone. It just controls when these pistons fire. And I'd also begun experimenting with like compacting the red coder design. It's still a bit of a mess here, but eventually I kind of nailed down a design to where we could stack it pretty efficiently. Like each red coder here is only 2 blocks tall. Cut to the next iteration of this design, and this is kind of where a lot of the flaws in the concept started to show themselves. I was kind of reaching like the limit of how fast the piston tape could go, and I started to encounter the issue that the torches in the red coder start to burn out, like this guy here. And this would cause it to power the note blocks when it's not supposed to, like these guys are jammed. Now it's fixed itself, but you can see it happen. Like yeah, it just burned out now. Now it's kind of a problem. Another issue more inherent to the whole concept is that, like, sure, playing one note at a time for like simple songs is pretty easy. But more complex songs with chords could be a problem because the way this is designed, you can only really play one note for each piston tape. So if you wanted to play 2 notes that are connected to the same piston tape, well, you're kind of out of luck. So you'd have to be careful about selecting what notes go on which piston tape and make sure that if you're going to play 2 notes at the same time, they're on different tapes. And this is kind of where I started to wonder how I can continue this idea. While I toyed around with fixing the torch burnout issue by replacing with other NOT gate designs to varying degrees of success, it still wouldn't change the fact that you couldn't really play any more than 1 note per tape, or at least not without seriously limiting how many notes you have on each tape. And I mean, whatever tune you could get out of it, it would still be just unbearably slow, even with like the fastest piston tape. But that's where I had the idea, maybe instead of using the various output levels of the cauldrons to control the note that you play, maybe you could instead use it to control the timing of that note. Cut over to this machine, and it may look a bit daunting, but the core mechanism is still relatively the same. I mean, you have the piston tape here, which goes through the comparator, and then the red coder. However, now instead of going into 4 different note blocks of varying notes, it goes down 4 separate lines, each one tick off from the last, which then go into 4 note blocks of the same note. Now, of course, you probably could have had these all go into 1 note block, but I figured it was easier to see what the circuit was doing, and I felt a bit masochistic and wanted to make it take 4 times as long to tune the machine. Now I guess we can check out this behemoth over here. Originally I had a very different song in mind when I was building this thing, however it didn't really end up working out because, well, of course there's still some issues with design. Like the torches in the red coder will still burn out if you play the same note multiple times rapidly. And like, well, sure, you can play different notes at a much faster tempo with this. You can still only really play one single note in however much time it takes for this piston tape to move to the next cauldron. Maybe a fix to that would be like you could spread that note out over multiple tapes. But otherwise, though, I thought this was a cool experiment, and here I'll just press play. Yeah. Sure, more can be done with this idea, but I think I'll leave it here for now. Hope you enjoyed, and feel free to tell me if I'm an idiot and this already exists, and bye! That's cool.